I love when people bring their gadgets with them because I never get to go out into the halls and I don't get to see all the cool stuff you guys do, so that's a real treat for me. Our next panel is about tech for good, a topic near and dear to my own heart. We're going to be looking at how tech for good can drive innovation for social impact. We have a returning moderator. She was here last year and she did a fantastic job. Please welcome the Managing Director of Digital for All, Kimberly, and her panel. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome back, Berlin. As the moderator already mentioned, we'll have an exciting topic for the next 30 minutes. We'll be talking about tech for good, because the question that's currently arising in businesses is, what can we do to make tech more sustainable, to make a better impact, and also to include everyone? And therefore, it's a pleasure to welcome my three great panelists here on stage. We have Zarah Bruhn, she's the Commissioner for Social Innovation at the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. We have Kursat Ceylan, he is the co-founder and CPO of WeWALK. And we have Sebastian Brandis, he's the speaker of the board at the Stiftung Menschen für Menschen, so roughly translated Foundation Humans for Humans, but what that is all about, we'll hear later. And first of all, I'd like to use the first couple of minutes to get to know our panelists. So Zarah, starting with you, you have a background in business and technology, and then you dived into the VC world. You founded a social startup, and now you're working at the Federal Ministry to look at how social innovation and social impact can come together. Just give us a short insight of how did you end up where you are, and what are you currently working on?
Yeah, so actually I studied in Mannheim business administration, and everybody said, okay, like the career is either consultancy or investment banking, or maybe you just go into corporate. Then I switched to TU Munich, where I saw a lot of entrepreneurs, which I found inspiring, but not necessarily the topics they were working on. I don't know, food delivery and all that stuff. I was like, why is that changing the world? And then I worked in a clean tech venture capital company. And there I saw a lot of entrepreneurs that wanted to make a difference, with clean technologies, green technologies in the world, even like in sub-Saharan Africa and so on. And I saw so many great entrepreneurs like combining changing lives, changing the environment for the better with technology. And I was like super drawn to this topic. And then I thought, well, they're maybe 1, 2, 3 years older than me. They're raising here big money, and they just have pitch decks and great ideas. I can also do that. Yeah, like everybody that wants to make a difference basically can do it. So I was looking for a topic, and I met a friend who also who just came from Syria, a refugee, supported her, and I was like, maybe I can make a difference in this field, because I was a volunteer, and I found myself inefficient being a volunteer, and I thought, why work in 40 or 60 hours in a corporate, in an investment bank, or in a VC when I actually can use this time to make a positive difference? And that's why I started Social B, where we integrate refugees in the labor market, diversify companies, and also use a lot of technology to do that. And it's extremely, it has been quite a journey, but I think the message is mostly that everyone can do it. And it's extremely fulfilling to combine both the purpose and the technology-driven startup.
Thank you very much. Sebastian, looking at you, I mean, you know this world of working 12 to 14 hours in the business sector. You had quite a successful career in the tech sector, and now you're working on things like sustainable water management in the global south. How did you end up there?
That's a good question. I asked the question myself as well. So, no, actually, it turned out that I always, wherever I was, and I studied physics and philosophy when I was there, I was a management consultant. Then I did 20 years of a corporate career in the tech sector, as you said. And then when we sold the last company, I said, I might as well do, as Zarah just said, use my time for something completely different. And actually, for me, it doesn't make a sense whether it's commercial or whether it's a commercial-driven company or a foundation. it's a question of attitude. You can actually be entrepreneurial in a foundation, or you can be entrepreneurial in a corporate, or you can be vice versa, actually quite dull in a corporate or dull in a foundation. So, and I found this jewel of something that was founded 40 years ago, which is an operational excellence in Ethiopia. And I said, this is a perfect entrepreneurial structure that needs to continue because the founder died. And they asked me to continue it, and I'm trying to transition this now away from a classical donation model to social business and working as a partner with corporates, with new business models, as well as transferring the image about Africa. You know, we have a fundamental problem about looking at Africa as always a deficiency continent, whereas in fact, it's an opportunity continent. And we are so blinded in terms of, we always think about, you know, black people and being poor or sad or whatever. In fact, the fact is opposite. I'm in Ethiopia like 3-4 times a year, traveling in the most remote areas, and many people are more happy than a lot of people in Berlin when you walk the street. So trying to transfer this image, trying to transfer the model, we partner with a continent like Africa is my main mission, and use, and we'll come to that in a minute, and use modern technology. You know, why would development work always, you know, work with handcraft models? Why don't we use modern technology to leapfrog, in fact, in some cases? And we'll have this example, I don't know whether we talk about it in a minute, but where we can actually use modern technology to be more efficient, more impact on water management than we are actually in Bavaria, to be honest. But we'll talk about this in a minute.
We will talk about it in a minute because it's quite a fascinating example of how you use technology actually to measure the impact you have and to make it work better and more efficient. But before we dive into that, I'd like to introduce our third speaker. It's Kursat, and he's a true entrepreneur. And it's quite fascinating because you have an academic background in psychological counseling, so not really an academic field where you would think that the next big thing is coming out of that cohort, but now you're a tech entrepreneur and you developed a smart cane to support the visually impaired community. Would you guide us and the audience a bit through your experience and your way of becoming a tech entrepreneur?
So, actually, I like my background, academic background, because psychology is a great domain. I gained transferable skills there. And during my university years, as a blind person, we were arranging special curriculum for visually impaired kids in the primary schools. And it was a volunteer activity for me and for my teammates. But after that, we gained many insights and we understand the better the community's needs. And upon that, we started to develop some solutions, technologies for visually impaired people. And yes, today we will talk about the WeWALK Smart Cane, but before WeWALK, we have implemented various solutions for visually impaired people already. And also, our solution, our approach is based on lived experiences. Just as an example, it was just before the inception of WeWALK. I was in New York to give a speech at the United Nations, and while I was going my hotel, I was using my traditional white cane with my one hand, and at the same time, I was using my smartphone to check the GPS direction, and at the same time, I had to pull my luggage with these 3 fingers. So managing all those things at the same time was a really destructive moment for me, and not surprisingly, all of in this chaos, I bumped into a pole. And this is not only my problem. There are more than 250 million visually impaired people all around the world, and if we want to unleash their potential, we have to encourage them to go out and participate social life. And that's why we focused on enhancing their mobility. And I'm excited to talk more about it in this panel.
Yeah, maybe just directly coming to a follow-up question. It says it's smart cane. So what's smart about it? What is the technology behind it, and how is that enriching your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so WeWALK detects overhead obstacles and alerts its users through haptic feedback and gives turn-by-turn navigation and informs you about restaurants, cafes, stores while you are walking and you can hear their names. And briefly, it integrates visually impaired people with cities. And it has a touchpad area, and then you can give comments, and it has a microphone and speaker in itself for voice interaction, and it's a talking device. And also you can pair with your smartphone, and you can get latest updates, and you can have new features day by day. And the most importantly, WeWALK is a Microsoft AI for Good startup, and we keep improving our AI solutions of WeWALK.
That is pretty impressive. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. Maybe Sebastian, looking back at you, because we're diving into how technology is working and what technology is doing for good. What's kind of the tech solutions you work with to monitor processes and to make your overall project more efficient and better?
Yeah, and then it's always, usually I show some pictures because the world where we work is so different from here. Give you an anecdote. Actually, when I traveled in Ethiopia, I got a lot of reports of the people that we work with, and they told me, we did a lot of AI today. And I said, what do you mean with AI? It's artificial insemination. So you see, that tells you that the world and the language we're talking to between here, the people here and people working in Ethiopia, is so different. Because they work with livestock, they have completely different questions, don't have any power. So what we do is, one big issue is water management. You know, about 2 billion people in the world still don't have access to safe water, meaning they don't have access to safe water within a 1 kilometer distance. 2 billion is about a quarter of the population of the globe. And then there's a lot of initiatives to change that. But the rumor and studies say that about 30% of the water schemes installed break down in 2 or 3 years. Now, why do they break down? Because many don't have the income to repair it, the groundwater depletes, plus the demand increases. Once you have water, clean water in a rural area of Ethiopia, which is normally designed so you can use 20 liters per head, that's normally designed for water. By the way, in Germany, we have 120 liters per head usage of water, just as an imagination. And then they use more and more water, and then, of course, the groundwater depletes as well. Thirdly, we have climate change, which means that the volatility of water and rain dramatically change. We see that already now. So there's no data really to manage this. So what we said, we will need to put some sensors into those water places and can remotely monitor the water usage of groundwater. We can see the water levels. Actually, you can look at the website yourself. And now we can see one of the most remote areas of Ethiopia. It's not even power. You can actually see how the groundwater develops, whether it's polluted, whether temperature rises, and so on. And we showed this data to the community in Ethiopia. We showed it to the government, and they were all completely excited. So the plan is now to roll it out into 1,000 sensors. And by the end of the time, that project, we will have probably more modern groundwater management than Bavaria, because in Bavaria you run around, they have a lot of manual water management still, because they have roads you can get to, whereas in Ethiopia you don't have the roads, so you don't go there. So you're actually using technology to leapfrog into a more modern world is what you can do, and jump those countries into a complete different level of management. And we do this, and the key point is, it's not high technology. You know, probably the AI, artificial insemination, is more generative than the one we talk about here because it creates life. But we don't need the biggest, the most forefront technology. We need something that is fit for demand. And this is what I think sometimes we miss in a tech community, that we always fall in love with the technology we have and try to find a solution. Whereas in those countries, it's key, you look for the demand first and then design the solution. That's the problem of development aid for the last 50 years, that we thought we know what to do and design something, whereas the details of what you really need is completely different when you talk to the people. And now we're driven by the government, driven by the local community. We will roll it out over the next 3-4 years, have most of the most modern groundwater management in those countries.
Thank you very much. So the two of you talked a lot about data, about things we can measure, about sensors. Zarah, looking at you, a thing that's coming up when you look at social enterprises is social impact, and how to measure it and how to make sure that you're going in the right direction. How do you try to incorporate that into the work you do, but also in your kind of broader perspective working for the ministry? What's your stance on that?
Yeah, so in the Ministry of Education and Research, I'm responsible for social innovation and really establishing social innovation on eye level to technology. technological innovation. And it's not like an either or, both like belong so strongly together. But right now, let's say the funding systems, like the support systems, financial infrastructures, are not yet having, let's say, beneficiary social criteria in there when they select, when they fund innovation projects. So my mission is also to open all funding instruments of the Ministry of Education and Research, let's say, the German Agency of Transfer and Innovation, and all the, let's say, big innovation funds. We also create own ones for, let's say, social impact. And we also create that measurement, like a measurement standard for social entrepreneurs based on the SDGs, basically to communicate, to measure, and also to prove their social impact. And what's social impact? Everything that, let's say, positively contributes to society and environment, whereas negative impact is the one that, creates social cost. And basically, in like a quantifiable model, both in KPIs, but also in euros, like how much does it cost for us, let's say, to have people not integrated? How much cost does it create for us to, let's say, in terms of CO2 emissions, there's a price tag on it. And that price tag is also something like a benefit or a cost to society, and really making that trade-off and supporting organizations, companies that make a huge, let's say, a scalable, transformative, has the potential for a scalable, transformative, positive impact. That's kind of the mission that we really try to, try to fund, with also open challenges, which is also important. Everybody can apply. Like if you're an NGO or if you're a high-tech KI company, as long as you, let's say, positively contribute to that mission. Let's say we want to integrate 100,000 refugees. It could both be solved with AI, it could be solved with like an organization that does mentoring, and it could be solved with an employment project of a corporate. So also, just thinking who contributes most to solving on a societal problem and supporting these ones with their innovative ideas, that's our mission.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to pick one topic you mentioned, because I mean, when looking at these ecosystems from kind of the ministry's perspective, it's I would guess also a lot about networks, about collaboration, about looking who needs to join the discussion, who needs to be at the table. So this basically is a question for all of you, but Kursat, I'd like to start with you as an entrepreneur. What's needed to make collaboration across sectors more efficient? What do you need from the government? What do you need from business side? What do you need from the regulators in order to actually make your project work better and to encourage more people to work in the tech for good field?
So we have to know that this domain needs some extra effort, because when you enter this domain business, you will get return of investment in the long run. So that's why somehow this domain have to be supported by the government and policymakers, by the policymakers as well. And also I believe that this is our responsibility, building social impact domain, because we need a sustainable world, and I believe we can make a difference by collaborating each other. And I think WeWALK is a really great example of this, because we know that the problem is huge. As I said, there are millions of visually impaired people, and we want to change their lives. And there is a good saying, it says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And that's why, okay, as an entrepreneur, okay, I created a device, I built a company, etc. This is just a half part of the journey. And rest of it, we have to make collaborations. That's why, as a WeWALK, we built large alliance behind the WeWALK. So we have a partnership with the blind organizations from different countries, from Australia to Canada, USA to UK, and also we built R&D partnerships with Microsoft, Imperial College London, and also in order to support such initiatives, such ventures, we need powerful ecosystem, social impact ecosystem. And that's why, as a WeWALK, we are a London-based startup. And I can honestly say that if WeWALK is successful right now, and we get benefits from being a London-based startup because of the ecosystem. I mean, you know, R&D grants and government supports, etc. And even today, we have a stand in the global space, UK booth. You can visit us. And I want to thank you to trade and investment team of the UK, TBT. So we are here, and I'm excited to meet you, most of them, in our stand. Please visit us and talk more about the WeWALK Smart Gain.
Thank you very much. I love it when speakers already introduce what's happening on other stages during the day. But we have around 7 to 8 minutes left on this panel. So Sebastian, looking at you, you know the corporate world quite well. And Kursat mentioned a couple of big corporates. What's needed in order to bring more tech for good ideas and more impact-oriented approaches to the boards, to the corporate world?
That's a good question. I think it's a mind shift change. I think I'm coming from the corporate and business sector. I hear everybody saying, Africa or social needs more social business. We need business, business, business. They tend to forget that business relies on a good social infrastructure. If people can't read or write or don't have a social balance, they will not be good productive. On the other hand, I'm working on the social side, who always bang against the, capitalists and the money makers. And I said, you can't survive with your social business unless you have somebody earning some money. So it is a mind shift of that both sides need to work together, plus the government, by the way, and rather build business models. I don't like the word business model. Should be need-based models, need-based around the human needs rather than the demand. And that's, I think, the fundamental change we need to take. This project, for example, is a collaboration between Technical University of Munich. It is collaboration between, an IT company who was willing to provide. It's the Ethiopian government. So it needs those collaborative models to bring the big changes. And I can only, also advise to look at the Sustainable Development Goals in a different way. They're not a burden to us. Each SDG is a business case. We look at it as a challenge for society. If economy is to solve societal problems, then each SDG is a question for a new business model. And just look at this way, and then rather than saying I need to do more reporting, whatever, it's a fundamental opportunity. And that's, I think, what we need to, and if we collate behind that opportunity together, then it drives the change that is needed.
Yeah, Zarah, I see you nodded quite often. Is there anything you want to add? Because Sebastian talked about this mind shift that's needed. What kind of leadership is needed in order to motivate people to join forces to work on tech for good issues?
Yeah, so what kind of leadership is needed? I guess the company leaders, corporate leaders, and you startup leaders, I guess more showing how your organization can contribute to a better future with, let's say, within your value chain. I'm not so much a fan of this whole CSR, we make money on that one side and then we donate here and there, and I don't think that's the future. The future is to build up sustainable, so value chains that are not on cost of people and planet, but for, net positive, yeah? And I guess this net positive in the value chain, monitoring, managing that, and making that also the key purpose of the company, whatever your industry you are. Even I'm saying the biggest change makers are in, let's say, dirty industries. If, I don't know, a steel company turns green, how much impact is that if steel is suddenly produced in a green way? All these business model shifts, I think that's the future, and the leaders need to see it instead of sticking to what they have right now and trying to, I don't know, get the last money out of there and then donating it. I think this disparity between making social impact in your like leisure time as a volunteer, that's great, but you can also do it for like during your work time. On the other hand, the corporates donating to buy themselves free in CSR projects while having sustainable value chains, it's an extreme big difference, and I think that's what's needed.
Thank you very much. As we're coming to an end, there's one last question I'd like to ask all of you. If we try to peek into the future, what's your one wish if we talk about tech for good in, let's say, 2050? Where are we headed? What's your one wish for the future? Kursat, feel free to start.
So in the future, we won't see any tech for good because all corporate companies, they will be tech for good or solution for good, service for good. We don't have any other way. They don't need to call them as a tech for good, but if they want to reach all the community, all the people, and make more money, generate more revenue, they have to be more inclusive, sustainable. I will talk about my own domain, people with disabilities. There are more than 1 billion people with disabilities. So if you are running a company, you can increase your revenue by serving equal opportunity to them. So if you want to reach more people, you have to be compliant with inclusive design agreements. And that's why I believe we won't have tech for good, and I hope all companies will be tech for good. And also, at the individual level, people will support, individuals will be the pioneer of this transformation, because in recent years, people started to think on the meaning of life more. Okay, I am earning money and I survive somehow, but why am I in this world? What do I do? And that's why people want to do something meaningful, and that's why they want to work for the companies, for the startups, which have impact, purpose. And also Picasso says that the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. And in the WeWALK, we are thank you.
Thank you very much. That was quite a powerful statement. Let's quickly move to our other two panelists. Maybe let's put it in a tweet.
Go for it. Zarah.
Yeah, I just have to agree to you, like building an economy that works for people and planet, and it's not like that separation between social and the normal like economy. I think that's where we're heading, where we have to head, because look at that other scenario. If not, I guess our social problems, our environmental problems are just getting bigger. And also, let's say, to save our freedom, to save our democracy, we have not much choice than really to go in there and fully go in there, like strictly go in there, because otherwise other forces might become more powerful and we might not live in a free and in a democratic world anymore if we don't really start to tackle it from today, yesterday, fully in all companies. That's actually mine.
Thank you very much. Sebastian.
Yeah, history tells us, unfortunately, that humankind has learned from catastrophes, be it the atomic bomb or whatever. Now, this time I wish that we learn before the catastrophe comes. And I think one fundamental idea is the the genesis of SDGs, the main idea of the SDGs was that every country has to develop. That was the main fundamental mindset change. Actually, every country has development needs. If you look at the CO2 footprint, you know, an average footprint of 2 tons per person globally would be sustainable. Now, Africa has 0.5, and Europe has 10. So who needs to develop? We all need to converge. And I think we should realize and take this as an opportunity rather than a threat. And if we manage that, then we avoid the catastrophe coming ahead.
Thank you very much. I guess that's a lot of food for thought for further discussions. Join me in a warm round of applause for our 3 fantastic panelists. Thank you so much.